Welcome back to the corner, everyone. I'm the DM as always, and today I want to talk about Assassin's Creed Shadow yet again. I know. Constantly Assassin's Creed Shadows. Assassin's Creed Shadows. I think I've made like 4 or 5 videos in like the past week about Assassin's Creed Shadows. But I was watching this video and I got about 10 minutes in before I decided I wanted to talk about this. I know this guy has 280,000 subscribers, significantly more than me. But those who have followed me for any length of time should know by now that these are things that I want to talk about. And I don't have the connections that these other people do. So I can't. I'm not able to talk to like insiders on Ubisoft or anything like that. Um, but there are some things in this video that are revealed that are very concerning. If what is being said is true, it confirms a lot of suspicions that players have had about why Yasuke was being implemented and why there was like hip hop music and whatnot. Just essentially, it reveals a lot of things that people speculated about Assassin's Creed Shadows, and it reveals them to be true if what is being said to this guy is factual. So this is by Endymion, I think his name is. He'll say it here at the very beginning of the video. But yeah, let's go ahead and get into it and talk about it.
Hey everyone, it's Endymion, and recently
Endymion.
I've been talking to some sources about Assassin's Creed Shadows behind the scenes and a lot of things that are happening at Ubisoft and even other game studios as well. And the things that I've been getting told are pretty damning. So with their consent, I've been able to make this video and present you the various things that they've told me. I vetted these sources, and they have indeed worked with Ubisoft for many years, as well as other game studios as well. They've even told me things about games that aren't released yet that I actually can't even say, because I think if I do that, assassins from other studios will probably barrel roll through my window and then take me out John Wick style. So anyways, I will spend this video explaining the absolute state of Assassin's Creed Shadows, Star Wars Outlaws apparently being referred to as Red Dead Star Wars internally, and more. And there's other stuff that you just gotta hear because a lot of this is just absolutely insane. So in my previous video, I explained that Paul Tassi of Forbes said in his article about the Ubisoft implosion that those extra months have been given to possibly reduce or even completely remove Yasuke from Assassin's Creed Shadows.
Now, this is the first thing that I want to talk about. Let me move myself over real quick. Hang on. Sorry, I'm just flipping some things around. So this right here, I want to talk about this. So I can guarantee you that Yasuke is not going to be removed unless something he says in a little bit is also true. If they intend on releasing the game in February and they're not going to actually delay it, all of this is just not possible. It's not feasible. There's no way that they can completely remove Yasuke and replace him with someone else in the amount of time that they are allocating themselves. They're giving themselves about 4 months to rewrite the entire game such that anything about Yasuke is removed and replaced with another character, or even just removed entirely. This would be like some enormous level of crunch. But this is assuming that what he's about to say about that timeline isn't true, and we'll talk about that in a moment.
My source told me, however, that they heard February
And yeah,
2025
this
is simply
essentially
a
impossible.
placeholder release date as of now. Apparently, this is because Ubisoft is scrambling and they need certain key talent in order to assist on a Q2 game release. Which, if you don't know what that means, there's 4 quarters to a calendar year, so Q2 means Ubisoft has something that they think will hit that is coming out later in the year that they need help on. So because talent at the studio is working to make that future release come out more smoothly, Shadows is not being given the extra hands it kinda needs right now, so like I said, the release date may actually be pushed back even further.
So this is what I was talking about. If they intend on releasing it in February, there's zero chance that they're going to remove Yasuke. Just zero chance. If they delay it past February, which is entirely possible, it is also possible that they do replace Yasuke. I would honestly say, given this game is like apparently like close to finished, if not like actually finished, to remove all content involving Yasuke, uh, they would need, I would say, probably about 6 months to do it, just because of how much they would have to remove and replace, as well as like test and whatnot. And that's assuming they even care about quality assurance, which I don't think they do. So yeah, if this is true and the February release date is just like something they just threw out there, I wouldn't be surprised if it was delayed further. But the reason why I don't necessarily think that might be true, the reason why I think they are aiming for a February release, now they might still delay it, but the reason why I think they are aiming for February is because February is Black History Month. That is further reinforced by something else that this guy talks about later on in the video.
I was also told when they originally saw the game, there was indeed a male Japanese protagonist with their own finalized art and even animations. They don't know if this character will be reintroduced in order to replace Yasuke, but they are skeptical that Ubisoft will actually remove Yasuke altogether
They
due to
won't.
the whole political, backlash they'll get from journalists and so on.
Oh, it's not even the political backlash that they'll get from journalists. If if by if when this game comes out, if they do replace Yasuke, there will not just be backlash from games journalists, but there will be a lot of people who will see them removing Yasuke as uh, them essentially trying to be politically correct, right? A lot of people will see it as a political move or a social political move instead, because now they're just, it's like, oh, well, you said you put this in here because this is a legendary swordsman, and now you're going back on that. How can we believe either of these, right? That's what it will be like. And I'm not saying that these people that would be like that are people that would even play the fucking game. I highly doubt any of them would be, or at least many of them would be. I'm sure maybe some of them will be people who want to play this game, but the majority of them will just be like quote unquote activists, right? People with like no real world experience. Some like 20, 21 year old, 23-year old person who is just like, oh, this is my point of view because Ubisoft is racist and a bigot and blah 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 DEI blah 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 the whole game blah 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 DEI, right? And they'll just blame everything on DEI. And in this circumstances, they'll not only blame it on DEI, but then they'll also flip it and blame it on gamers for basically forcing them to abandon their DEI approach.
They did say that the game's first act is heavily story driven until it eventually opens up to your more traditional open world Ubisoft experience. And that the big hurdle there, if they were to remove Yasuke, would be to practically change almost everything about Act 1, so to speak,
Yeah,
if they were to remove the character entirely. So could they remove Yasuke with this already done but thrown aside Japanese character? It's a
no,
big
absolutely
maybe,
not.
but they said that they weren't sure of it yet. They also told me they heard rumblings that Sweet Baby Inc. may have had a hand in Shadows, but they can't confirm that 100% yet, so take that allegation with a huge big fat shot of skepticism right now, okay?
I actually agree with him here. I do not think Sweet Baby Inc. had anything to do with Yasuke's choice, and the reason why he'll talk about
But
it in a
like I
moment.
was saying, the game did first include a male Japanese main character, but they were swapped sometime during 2020, according to my source for Yasuke instead. So this is where stuff gets really weird and pandering, but I asked them what influenced Ubisoft to make the change that they did from the original Japanese male
This is
character
why I
to
don't
now
think Sweet
Yasuke.
Baby Inc.
They said that
Was
Ubisoft
involved.
was heavily influenced by the socio-political events of the time, with stuff like, and no I'm not kidding, George Floyd dying, the riots, and Black Lives Matter exploding in support. So don't shoot the messenger here, But this is what I was told by this source, but Ubisoft may have opted to include Yasuke in order to pander to identity politics because of Black Lives Matter.
Yeah, so if this is true, this is extremely damning for Ubisoft. Now, we will probably never actually get confirmation from Ubisoft as to whether or not this is true. Um, but I do believe I would be able to believe that this is true. Um, Especially if it was like early stages of development, them being influenced by this and wanting to swap it out, they probably thought that by doing this, they will attract the black audience to their game. They will get a lot of really good free press from it because they'll be seen as being very inclusive. But obviously, that backfired.
I know, it's a hell of a statement. Again, they said they cannot confirm 100%, but they did say that they have seen the original Japanese hero character and that they were actually mortified when they saw Yasuke for the first time in the game. Apparently, one of the videos that Ubisoft was showing of Yasuke originally, and no, I'm not kidding you, was Yasuke destroying a grocery store property with his weapons in order to show the game's physics engine. But the source said that they couldn't believe how tone-deaf Ubisoft was, being considering they were literally showing a black guy in a foreign country destroying property. This lack of knowing what to do with shadows was all over the game, and like I said, Yasuke was inserted for identity political reasons.
Yeah, so this is I'm not surprised that this person would be mortified at such a thing. A better way of doing it, to show off the physics engine, right, would be instead of having Yasuke doing it, right, have you could have the female character doing it instead. That I mean, it wouldn't necessarily be an amazing look for them, right? But at least it wouldn't be a foreigner going around and destroying property that he doesn't own, right? It would just be a better look. No one would really bat an eye if it was the other character doing it, right? Or they could simply, have an enemy doing it and that be that. They could also not use like a shop stall. They could use like some random broken down ruined cart out in the fucking wilderness somewhere that has no relevance to anything else in the entire game, and have that be what's destroyed. And or they could have it be from a cutscene where, I don't know, you're riding down like there's someone in a cart uh, riding down a road, and then they get ambushed by bandits, and they destroy the car, and they destroy some of the crates, and goods go flying everywhere, and wha-bam, you're showing it off in a way that doesn't mock the fucking culture, or at least doesn't mock it in the way that they're wanting to, right? With Yasuke doing it.
The source also said that Ubisoft was horrified by the response to Yasuke from the fandom, and they actually thought including him would be a really big selling point for the game. They apparently believed by inserting Yasuke that they could garner and pander to the modern audience, which is cringe. But yes, these studios are still trying to pander to these groups that, like I've said so many times, they literally do not exist. Another very damning allegation I was told by sources was that compared to Assassin's Creed Valhalla, that Shadows has only about 7% the pre-order numbers of Valhalla during the same time period. Yes, you heard that right,
Yeah,
guys.
I mean that's kind of
7%
wild,
of
to be
Valhalla.
honest.
So that other report where Stuttering Craig, a side-scroller, said Shadows only had about 800 physical pre-orders over about 900 plus stores in America.
That's less than
is
one.
Telling the truth,
One
my
per store.
friends. So it's pretty evident that Ubisoft delayed the game not only due to backlash, but because they were getting next to nothing pre-order wise when compared to Valhalla, or even Mirage even. I don't have exact concrete numbers on Valhalla's pre-orders prior to launch, however, Remember that Valhalla is Ubisoft's second most profitable game of all time, and it's only beaten by Rainbow Six Siege.
Yeah, so let's talk about that real quick. The pre-order. So, AC Valhalla pre-order numbers, right? So we go here. Might be a little bit. It might actually be a little difficult to find the numbers themselves. Yeah, probably not really all that possible right now, especially with like this kind of thing coming out. One sec. Sorry about that. Um, oh no. It's funny that it wanted to. Anyways, so we don't actually have the numbers, or at least I can't find them, and I'm not about to try and go look them up. But either way, for Assassin's Creed Shadows to only have 7%, um, actually, I have. Hold on. So on Steam, we can see it had an all-time player peak of 15,000. Now, obviously, this does not take into consideration Xbox numbers, which are going to be significantly higher. I'm pretty sure. However, one thing we can kind of extrapolate if we just assume, right, that Assassin's Creed Valhalla had, we'll say, 100,000 pre-orders, right? 7% of that would be around, I think, 7,000. So for them to only have around 7,000 pre-orders, maybe it might be 700, something like that. But for them to have less than 10,000 pre-orders, essentially, is very, very telling as to how many people actually want to play this game. Now, there's something else I want to get into, but I'm gonna let him talk for a little bit more before I go into it.
So Shadows currently, as of the making of this video, or like a month ago, I guess, has about 7% of that, if you can believe it. I was also told that Ubisoft has made Shadows the most microtransaction-filled experience from launch compared to any other previous title that they have ever released in the franchise. So
That
we're
would kill the
talking
game
loads
on
of
launch.
DLC armor, weapons, mounts, trinkets, etc. for both characters, all for premium costs. Which, of course, is nonsense because the game is full price at launch. But they actually thought, according to my source, that Shadows would be doing better than Valhalla. And no, I am not kidding. Besides the abysmal pre-orders, the thing that actually spooked Ubisoft more than anything else was how Japan reacted to the one-legged Torii Gate figurine. Remember that that's the merchandise product where Yasuke and Naoe are standing on a symbol of
Yeah, this
Nagasaki
is
getting the
fucking
atom bomb
insane.
dropped on them? Yet these characters take place in Japan, well, before that even happens. And this culturally devastating piece that proved that Ubisoft was not adequate enough to make the game, or really know anything about the time period, it led to the higher-ups admitting defeat and demanding that the game get a cultural do-over, if you will. They wanted things to be more authentic because the one-legged Torii Gate incident was so embarrassing and baffling that they didn't want anything else like that to ever happen again in their history. So, that's another big reason for you. As of now, from what I've been told, February 2025 is being chosen because Ubisoft believes there will be a AAA gaming drought around that time period. So they're hoping that they can capitalize by releasing Shadows then instead of November 15th, which was its original release date. Even though there are plenty of games coming around that time, like Monster Hunter Wilds will release in that same period, which makes me believe that Ubisoft will indeed push the game even further back than intended. One of the things for sure getting removed from Shadows, according to my sources, is indeed the rap hip-hop music for Yasuke. Apparently, Ubisoft brought out a questionnaire, and they were unanimously told that the rap music was tonally wrong and completely unneeded, and that it was actually offensive that Ubisoft believed Yasuke needed a hip-hop battle theme in a game that was set well before such music
This is only a
existed,
good thing, by
and
the
it
way.
was only implemented because Yasuke was black, so that's going to be gone for sure.
And I mean, it's pretty obvious that the only reason why there's rap music is because there's a black guy as as one of the main characters, right? Like this isn't, or at least this shouldn't be a surprise to anyone. But if they remove all rap from this game entirely, it'll be a good move. If they leave any amount of rap in the game, then this isn't something that they should be forgiven for, and this is something that everyone should just lambast them even harder over if they leave any amount of rap in this game. It's fucking insane that they even thought that having rap in this fucking game was in any way, shape, or fucking form good.
They're also removing dialogue from the game that, according to my source, told me that it would actually enrage players if they heard it. I wasn't given concrete examples of what kind of dialogue, but the source assumed it may have been Yasuke saying some sort of socio-political pandering nonsense about how he was sold by white men or something, and that he hates white men and white supremacy must be abolished and such. They're also removing this because, of
Yeah,
course,
I
if that
believe
were
that.
in the game, it would absolutely be highlighted and used to detract even more people from supporting the game in the future.
And that's something that's totally something that is totally understandable that they would remove this. But I will say the fact it obviously we might not actually even know what this is. There is a chance, and I hope this is the case. There's a chance that they still leave the files in the game and just remove the events that trigger it. Um, I hope they leave it in the game because I would really, really love to know what those are. And depending on what they are, if they are in any way, shape, or form, even remotely close to what his sources are saying, they are speculating about. Um, I I'm gonna be honest. I haven't yet sworn off Ubisoft games entirely. I'm exceedingly close, mind you. But if what the source is speculating on, if that is in any way even remotely close or similar to what they end up removing, yeah, I will never touch another Ubisoft game, past, present, or future, ever again. Because that is more tone deaf than the fucking one-legged Tory gate. And like the one-legged Tory gate is already exceedingly fucking tone deaf.
Also, during development, one of the hardest things to implement for Ubisoft apparently was the parry system, according to sources. And allegedly, Shadows was also going to be the last game in the series that would feature the RPG like gameplay mechanics that started in Origins. And that future releases would instead go back to what the series was most known for, which was more of an action adventure style. Just look at Unity or, Assassin's Creed 2, that kind of thing instead. With stuff like the more timed combat of the original and such, and apparently the RPG stuff is very difficult to implement, and Ubisoft wants to lessen the load, as they say, in future games. I was also told that the next
So real quick before he gets into this, um, it's actually wild to me to think that the parry system is something that was hard for them to implement because all of the previous Assassin's Creed games that were action combat, mind you, not the RPG ones, um, they had parry systems. There was one, um, I forget where it was set. It might have been Unity. I don't remember. But there was one where like the best way or like the best way to proceed in combat in that game was to just parry encounter. And their parry system in that was pretty fucking good. So to hear that they think or that they were struggling to implement the parry system is pretty wild to me. And the only way I can think of that that would be the reason why it would be difficult is because they're like using like entirely different people and aren't reusing any amount of code and just writing the code entirely from scratch. And I'm going to be honest, as a game developer, if you're writing your code entirely from scratch for each game, you're doing it wrong because reusing code is like one of the best ways to speed up development.
next Assassin's Creed, which is called Hexy or Hex, which is set during the Salem witch trials, was being internally claimed, and get this, to be the gayest Assassin's Creed yet. I'm told that it only has a single female protagonist, and it's also the most fantastical Assassin's Creed yet. There will be lots of mysticism, and will also have, as they said, very striking visuals. I don't know if that means an entirely different art style or anything, but this is what I was told. It will still be an open world action game like the other ones, but from what I've been told, it is the biggest departure yet for the series. My sources claim that Hex or Hexy, whatever it's called, is very, very female power oriented. We are talking lots of lesbian relationships and female characters. It has witch covens and apparently very little masculine presence within the game. Although my source has told me that they believe that the game will be scaled down in the future and then made into a Liberation-esque game instead of a mainline title. If you know the one that had, the smaller games. Anyway, let's keep going. Mostly because
So before he continues, if that's true, the game will flop. People, especially gamers, are getting really, really sick and tired of this like forced diversity and like forced DEI and whatnot. And here's the thing, right? The gameplay probably going to be fine. I doubt it will be anything better than what we've already seen, right? It'll probably be like pretty average, like a 5 out of 10 level gameplay, right? But the reason why like Valhalla and Mirage did so much better than what Shadows is going to do is because Valhalla was telling a story about Vikings, right? It was true to the culture, it was true to the origins. It didn't try to force things in, didn't try to really pander or anything like that. And same with Mirage, right? The main protagonists for each of these games were members of that culture, right? Not just random foreigners that have no fucking actual basis in history, right? That's why those games did so well. And that's why Shadows is not going to do so well, is because it doesn't have that level of like cultural respect. So the Salem witch trials were heavily, heavily, heavily influenced by Christianity and religious sects. SECT, okay? Not SEX, SECT, sects. And the entire reason why the Salem witch trials took place in the first place was because, according to Christianity, only females could be witches, right? And so, realistically, if they're going to have it set in that, having a female protagonist would make sense, okay? It would just straight up make sense, because especially if they're wanting the main character to be a part of like one of these witch covens or whatever, right? Because during that time, that's what it was seen as, is females were the witches, males were not the witches, okay? They couldn't be a witch because witch means female. Only females can be witches and males are wizards, right? That's just how it works. At least as far as like the Salem witch trials are concerned and whatnot, right? So having a female protagonist would make sense. The thing that would destroy it is pretty much everything else that he mentioned, right? So it could work if they actually do proper research on the Salem witch trials and what was going on during that era.
Ubisoft does not have confidence that Hex will sell well at all, and this too was put into development when a lot of these pandering games were first being pitched or made. Internally, as I was being told, the developers behind Hex joked that the game will indeed piss off the fan base, but they wanted to make it anyway. I assume because the game is devoid of male characters, besides of course the ones you probably kill or hunt, And like I said, it's going to have borderline magic at this point in the Assassin's Creed series, so expect lots of weird Isu gobbledygook, I guess, as well, but that's what I was told about Hex so far. They also told me that there's not a chance in hell that Ubisoft doesn't go bankrupt, and that Ubisoft's backup plan, if they were to get a bailout or if things were to turn around so that they could actually, exist in the future and not just immediately cease all operations, would be to immediately shift all gears and then remake the original Assassin's Creed game, which is apparently not in development right now. And they also will pivot and just remake the entire Ezio trilogy as well in order to just garner goodwill and get the support from the players again. These
If this is true, this is fucking wild. Um, I'm gonna be honest. I personally am really, really sick and tired of remakes. Especially remakes that nobody is fucking asking for. They are 9 times out of 10 just quick cash grabs and nothing else. And I'm gonna be honest, they just are almost always bad. They're almost always bad. It is very rare that a good, especially nowadays, that a good remake is going to come out. I mean, just fucking look at the Soul Reaver remake. It literally looks like a demake.
sources also believe that Hex will likely never see the light of day, but if it does, they will be actually shocked if it's not cancelled or at the very least reduced dramatically in scope. I'm also told that many game studios are aware of Gamergate 2, and while they fear the implications of being caught in that war, that many studios have no desire or will to change their games to appeal to core audiences anymore. According to my sources, and this was one of the most damning allegations, so please listen carefully here, is that the game industry across plenty of studios will start to market their games as being devoid of identity politics and pandering almost completely. However,
That
the
wouldn't surprise
actual
me,
content within
honestly.
these games in the future will not be altered or lessened in terms of identity political content, despite this tonal change in marketing. Simply put, many studios and publishers are still all in on DEI and wokeness in the future. Like, they are not changing that. And they still want you to consume this content whether you want to or not, but they will now sell you the games by marketing them to you to trick you into thinking that they're not woke, basically. And then you will buy it, and then sometime into these future experiences, all the wokeness, I guess, will reveal itself, and then you will be probably too far into these games in order to refund them, and then these studios and publishers will then make their money. I asked my sources if they were sure of this. They said that they were, and that this is damning. So it looks like we're about to be getting some 4D chess moves from the industry soon, so expect a lot of deceiving marketing tactics that will be tricking you into buying games that you wouldn't normally buy yourself.
This, honestly, it's concerning, but it doesn't surprise me. Um, so the reason why it doesn't surprise me is because we are seeing the rise of a new sort of version of DEI called Bridge, right? And we are seeing companies be like, "Oh, look at us, we're getting rid of our DEI department." But they're not telling you that they're getting involved with the Bridge movement, which is DEI. It's just rebranded. It really is. Um, so it does not surprise me. And if Hex or whatever they want to call it does come out, this Salem Witch Trials thing comes out, I very much expect any trailers, any gameplay, anything that we see from it to be uh, intentionally manipulated to avoid seeming like it has anything to do with identity politics. Very much like he said, intentionally manipulated to give you the appearance that it does not have identity politics, even though it will. And they will set these kind of like identity politics and whatnot. The obviousness of it won't really show itself until probably after your refund period has come out. And I'm going to be honest, in my opinion, this means that rather than just straight up buy it or pre order any of these games, gamers need to wait for actual people that they trust to review these games after they have come out, and specifically look for people who are not sponsored by Ubisoft to review these games. Because I guarantee you, anyone who is sponsored by Ubisoft or any company that is paid by Ubisoft to review their game will not mention identity politics in their review. I guarantee it. The only people who will are the people that are not getting a financial benefit from Ubisoft. It's the only people that you will be able to trust. And even some of those you won't be able to trust because some of them will want the identity politics. And so they will either try to make it seem like it's not there at all, or they'll be even more deceptive and try and manipulate it into being something that is good for the game.
So if we didn't stay vigilant enough before, we definitely have to in the future, it seems. I was also told that Ubisoft internally wants to make games that will, as I wrote in my big info doc here that I'm referencing from, they want female characters to dominate the world and the games industry. Like they want every game that they make to feature female protagonists in leading roles and lots of diversity, and little to no white men at all within lead roles anymore. They hoped that, according to my sources, that if they did this, that the game industry would all follow in suit. And this is basically being done because they want to erase masculinity from gaming altogether. I wish I was kidding, but hey, this is what my sources were telling me. So take that as you will, fellas. I was also told that the project that ruined Ubisoft was not actually Outlaws or Shadows. It was actually Skull and Bones. My sources told me they have seen multiple different versions of the game that were each completely different over the years. They said that they were told that the budget that was spent on Skull and Bones, it ranged somewhere from $650 to $850 million over 10 years. And
What? Hold on. Okay, no. If this is true, Skull and Bones is absolutely the first nail in the coffin. Absolutely. Sony spent like over $200 million on Concord. Like Concord had a budget of 400 million, 200 million from the first the people that first owned Firewalk Studios, and then at least another 200 million from Sony, minus whatever they paid for buying the actual studio Firewalk, right? So for Skull and Bones, which is built off of Black Flag, an existing game, right? To have a budget, even if it's the low figure of $650 million. Hang on. I'm going to say Ubisoft's going to go bankrupt. It doesn't matter what they do, they're going to go bankrupt. If they spent upwards of almost $1 billion on Skull and Bones, which is built off the Black Flag game and code and assets and every fucking thing else, there is literally zero chance that Ubisoft does not go bankrupt within the next 10 years. Like, they need an absolute smash hit, full stop. Like, whatever their next game is, whatever game they're cooking up that they think is going to like set them back on the right path, right? Whatever it is, if it is not an absolute critical success in every single way, they're bankrupt. They're cooked.
And that Skull and Bones failed so badly for Ubisoft, it was the actual reason why they're dying the way that they are right now. It's not actually Outlaws and Shadows, if you can believe it. So they sunk a legendary amount of resources into that game, and it clearly did not work out for them at all. They actually believed that Outlaws and Shadows would be the games to pull them out of financial ruin after what happened with Skull and Bones. So, in terms of Star Wars Outlaws, and this is crazy, I was told that Ubisoft was devastated internally by the sales in response to Outlaws, and that they actually thought that they would make, and no, I am not kidding, they thought Outlaws would do, as my sources tell me, Red Dead Redemption 2 levels of profit. The game was actually internally being called during development as Red Dead Star Wars. They thought they had a mega multiple franchise spin-off series in the works that would change the industry for the better in their opinion. I was also told at one time that the original pitch for Outlaws was actually a Mandalorian game. So, Massive is the studio that made Outlaws. They also made the Division games too. Apparently, the original vision for Outlaws was the Division, but instead of agents, each player was their own Mandalorian instead.
Honestly, if this was it, and we all played as Mandalorians, and it was like a Division style game, and it was good, mind you, this probably would have pulled them out of financial ruin. It honestly probably would have.
And there would be multiple Mandalorian families and crests, and you could swear your allegiance to whoever you wanted to. And the idea was to have this multiple world spanning galaxy, always online action RPG adventure game where you could tackle bounties and quests with your friends or by yourself as your own fully customizable Mandalorian. You could find new pieces of gear, like in the Division, and then swap out your guns for different stats and, make your own builds. And there would be endgame content.
That sounds amazing.
You could jetpack around and fight in third person.
Why did they switch away from
Division,
that?
But obviously it's Star Wars. This sounded amazing to me. I don't know why they didn't do it. But
yeah, like what the fuck? Ambitious. Like, hold up. What the fuck? Why would you not do that? Like, what? The Mandalorians are some of the, there's some of the people that have, the least amount of video games. If they, oh my god. That legitimately, if they just full sent it on, a Division-style Mandalorian-esque fucking, or like a Mandalorian Division-style fucking game, bro, that would have been so fucking awesome. Ubisoft, are you, bro? So I've speculated that fucking Sony is allergic to money because they refuse to make a fucking Bloodborne remake, right? They refuse to go for that. But Ubisoft, this is a fucking slam dunk. Playing as some random fucking chick that has no bearing whatsoever on the Star Wars universe as a whole versus playing as a fucking Mandalorian. One of the coolest fucking sets of people in the entire fucking Star Wars franchise. What? Oh my god. Bro, no fucking shot. Why would you abandon the Mandalorian for some no-name fucking chick? I will always choose the Mandalorian over whoever the fuck this bitch is. And by this, I mean her. I don't even fucking remember her name. She doesn't fucking matter.
I guess. And eventually, Massive would then shelve the idea and instead went all in on criminal empire stuff, and then they reduced their vision of the game into a solo single-player game that you know now. Also, from its inception, Outlaws was always intended to have a female main character too. Originally, as I was told, Kay Vess was actually an Indian woman, but they eventually brought on Humberly Gonzalez to play the character, but Ubisoft internally didn't want Kay Vess to be fully Latina either. So they ended up with this weird mix of a character that they wanted to pass as vaguely every ethnicity possible, and that was actually intended by design. It was referred to, as my source said, as an omni-racial main character. So if you're wondering why Kay Vess doesn't look fully white, Latino, Asian, Black, whatever, now you know. They literally made the most ethnically ambiguous main character they could.
That also explains why she's so fucking ugly. because they were trying to make her look like everything all at once.
Apparently, Massive was chosen for Outlaws by Ubisoft because the Division game sold well, and they wanted to make Massive their new premier studio, so to speak. But like I said, originally, they wanted all of their games to star women of color or diversity, whatever, with little to no white men at all. This is why Shadows has Noway and no male option, and black characters, even male ones, are considered on par with importance to Ubisoft in terms of female representation or diversity. Black men are seen as a priority to push in franchises over white men too, according to what I've been told. So if you're wondering why everything they've made recently is so diverse and checks all the boxes, you're not being crazy, it's all being done by design.
It's
Also,
literally
Avatar
intentional.
Frontiers of Pandora was a massive loss for Ubisoft as well, but they saw the game more as a beta test for the Snowdrop engine, and for Massive to familiarize themselves with open world sandbox style games.
I have seen literally one video covering this game, this Avatar game, and it was a fucking sponsored video at that, and the gameplay looked exceedingly fucking boring.
And they were hoping that while Avatar failed, that they could use their newfound expertise and experience to turn their next game, which was Outlaws, into Ubisoft's Red Dead Redemption-like experience, which is still insane, but that's what they thought. They actually thought that Outlaws was as good as Red Dead internally. This is what I was told, man, but yeah, that is... Oh god, that is crazy.
That's
Some more
that is
random
a
things I was
wild
told was that
assumption
Far Cry
to
6 broke
make
even.
by
It did make some
Ubisoft.
profit, but it actually didn't perform the way that Ubisoft intended it to. And that their next games that are coming out, which I'm not allowed to say because my sources told me to not say them, they said the future games that Ubisoft has for 2025 and 26, assuming that, they make it that far, are even less impressive than Outlaws or Shadows, and based on what they were telling me about them, I believe them. There is a lot of slop coming in the future from Ubisoft if they make it to those release dates. They also had some information on
This is
Ghost of
fucking
Yote,
wild.
and they'll be giving me more in the future once they find more out. But apparently, Ghost of Yote blindsided many people that were working at Sony who were not made aware of what Sucker Punch was making. And that people in the mid-levels at Sony were actually confused when Yote was announced because they were under the impression that Jin Sakai would be getting a sequel, and they are not happy at all when it comes to the response of that game either internally at Sony right now. Like I said, I should hopefully have more on Yote eventually, but finally my source told me that Ubisoft has a massive labor problem right now, and that the actual
That doesn't
workforce
surprise
at
me
their studios that they
at
own
all.
are largely incompetent and full of diversity hires and women, which were hired in order to check boxes. Because many of these hires, according to the sources, were brought in to diversify the development teams. The actual talent level over at Ubisoft is apparently far lower than it was even 10 years ago. Most key talent has already left the
That's
company
fucking-
completely, and this has led to huge internal problems with dev teams and what they're making right now. There's apparently way too many junior level people and not enough seniors to teach them how to properly do things. And what ends up happening is that Ubisoft tends to outsource a lot of their development to other countries and their dev teams to help them, because the actual teams that Ubisoft has right now are really bad at their jobs. Apparently, this is what I'm told.
I mean, so this makes sense when you look at the quality of Outlaws. Um, Outlaws, when it released, I don't know how it's doing now, but when it released, it had enormous AI bugs. It had really, really bad mechanics. It had a lot of other glitches and bugs unrelated to the AI of the game. And it was shipped as a game that, like, if you told me that Outlaws was them trying to onboard some new people and get them experience with game development because they were juniors, if you had told me that, I would have been like, yeah, okay, that makes sense. It's understandable why it is so bad, right? But I would also be like, they probably shouldn't use such a big IP like Star Wars to do that with, right? It would be better for them to make like a brand. Honestly, if they hadn't called it fucking Star Wars, if Outlaws was like some fucking, I don't know, Blue Balls McGee, right? And that's what they called it, right? And it was some new spin-off IP that they were just testing out. If that's what it was, and then you told me that like this was made by junior developers, we're trying to get them experience before we throw them onto our bigger projects, I'd be like, all right, cool, that's understandable. You know, it's understandable. It's disappointing that this game is so bad, but it's understandable, right? But like, bro, why? Hang on.
My sources also told me that many of the things people like Grum say, or the things that I assume when I make my videos, are actually not bleak enough. And that the game industry in general is, as they said to me, on fire in every conceivable way, and things are so much worse internally than we even know right now. These sources also told me that the people they know from various studios ranging from all the usual AAA studios that you know of, that there is a massive, and I can't stress this enough, but a massive problem with witch hunting and identity politics in gaming. And that it's to the point where nobody can question anything, and there's a lot of what's being called these days in the news as toxic positivity, and this is absolutely 100% the case. If you're accused of not supporting the current narrative, you are being essentially torn apart as if you're living in a cult pretty much in these studios now. And that this toxic positivity has been getting referenced all over online, and it's literally killing games before they even come out now. If you're wondering why every game from Western studios seems to be pandering or putting women in them like crazy and so on,
DEI.
I'm told you're not crazy at all, actually. In fact, you're just recognizing patterns that have been going on for a very long time at this point. My sources also told me that people within Western studios will oust you if you go against the narrative even remotely. And that
This does not surprise me at all. With what we've been told, from there was another video I covered from, I think, Legendary Drops, where his sources told him that at Ubisoft you could get sent to HR for having a fucking exclamation point and a message, for having a fucking emoji, because people are getting triggered off this shit now. Like, this is so fucking disgusting. The level of just bullshit that's happening in the games industry. And if this is true, if this is going on everywhere, it doesn't surprise me. It really doesn't. Because, I mean, it's not just fucking Western developers. It's like a lot of games nowadays coming out have some form of DEI in them or associated with it in some way. This doesn't always mean that the game is bad. Like I covered in a previous video, things like God of War Ragnarok had Sweet Baby Inc. involved, but it came out amazingly. You know, there are a lot of games that have like Sweet Baby Inc. and DEI and whatnot involved in it in some way, but they are still coming out as really, really great products because the gameplay itself is just good, right? The game is good. So to hear yet again from a second person with, I assume, probably different sources, maybe the same source, I don't know, but to hear a second person coming out and saying, yes, my sources are saying that this is going on. Oh man.
that this
Oh
witch
man.
hunting is being used in order to usurp senior level talent so that new hires with little experience can actually crawl into these way more lucrative and powerful positions that they have no business being in the first place. And
Yeah,
this has now
that doesn't
led to
surprise
more
me at all.
people like them who think the same way as them getting hired, and that this stagnation of talent and creativity is permeating all throughout a large amount of Western studios right now. So if you think the industry is cooked now, it's in fact far more worse apparently than you could even hope to imagine. But this is what I got for you so far. To reiterate, Yasuke was implemented solely due to identity politics. Black Lives Matter movements were an inspiration apparently for the character being included in the first place. He was not there originally. There was actually a fully completed Japanese male main character model somewhere in Ubisoft right now that they're not using. Ubisoft wants all their games to feature female protagonists, and they want the industry to completely reject white men in every single way. There's witch hunting across the entire industry, Outlaws was believed to be Ubisoft's Red Dead Redemption franchise in terms of quality and sales, and they were so deluded they actually thought it was going to be that. There's thousands of incompetent people in positions just wasting salaries and ruining your favorite games on purpose. Disingenuous marketing tactics will be implemented in the future to ensure you buy their games, but the actual content of said games will not be changing in any way. They are basically trying to own the chuds, as they would call it, and the Western industry, for the most part, are very, very, very identity politically driven right now, and there's no signs of it stopping anytime soon. Ubisoft will likely 100% go under no matter what, unless they are given some sort of bailout to operate at a limited
I hope they
capacity in
don't
the
get any
future, as I'm told.
bailout
The only way
whatsoever.
that I can see this happening personally is either foreign investment or the Canadian government, since Ubisoft's main operations are in Canada, bails them out or something. Which means that my taxes could be used to save Ubisoft for a time, which radicalizes me like you don't even know, makes my blood boil, but here we are. Assassin's Creed Hex, or Hexy, will be the gayest, most woman, lesbian-driven game ever conceived by Ubisoft yet, and it will be a girl power fantasy game unlike you've ever seen before, and Skull and Bones is a major reason why they're dying the way that they are right now. I think that about covers it. I will likely have more in the future, we'll see, but for now, that is plenty enough for one video, I think we can all agree. Please spread the word of what was said here. Maybe if more people see this video, more sources will then contact me in the future. If you have any info, please email me or DM me on Twitter. All of that info is in the description box below or in the pinned comment. Thank you for watching. Subscribe. Thanks to my patrons and members. Have a wonderful day, everyone. Don't worry. We'll get through this. Just keep playing your backlogs, and I'll see you soon.
Yeah, so this is wild. If what he says is true, uh, Ubisoft will go bankrupt within the next 10 years, guaranteed. If their entire push is for female protagonists only and diversity, 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 and absolutely no white men whatsoever, the future of Ubisoft is set in stone if all this is true. There's no way they're going to come back from this. It doesn't matter what they release. It doesn't matter what they market it as. They're going to go under. And the first game that they release where it's touted as being free of like DEI or diversity or anything like that, the moment the first game that is touted as that is released and it comes out that that is a complete false narrative, that game will get massive refund requests. If it gets on Steam, Steam is more than likely going to force them to refund him. I mean, we've already seen them force developers in the very recent past to completely refund their games. And I'm going to be honest, in the PC market, unless they wish to just abandon the PC market, you have to be on Steam. You have to be. Because if you're not on Steam, no one's going to fucking care about your game. The people are tired of having to download 50 million different launchers to play different games. They're just tired of it. They want one place where they can just play all their games, and that's why Steam is such a big player. That's why it's the biggest player. So if Assassin's Creed Shadow releases and it does not actually respect the culture of Japan, i.e., Yasuke's still a fucking main character, the game will fucking bomb. End of story. It will bomb. No one's going to play it. No one's going to buy it. Right? That's just how it's going to play out. Because gamers, the people who are going to buy these games, are sick and tired of this shit. Right? And the Japanese players are especially sick and tired of this shit from Assassin's Creed Shadows, with its constant, just like, disregard for their fucking culture, right? And it's completely understandable for them to be like that. If Hex comes out and it is also all about like this woman empowerment and shit, That game will also flop. Critically, it will be an enormous failure of a game, and it will be the last nail in the coffin for Ubisoft. The fact that they spent anywhere between 650 and 850 million dollars on a product whose base gameplay already existed. Oh my god. Like, I made a video calling or comparing Anthem to Concord and saying that Anthem was an absolute brilliant success when compared to Concord. Um, if what they said about how much budget Skull and Bones had is true, if that is true, Concord will look like a fucking smash hit by comparison. Like it. Oh my. Yeah, that's all I have. I'm probably really low energy because it's fucking super late at night, and I'm trying not to yell because I don't want to wake up my roommates or anything. So yeah, I'm gonna end this video there. It's already been a fucking hour. Uh, this is just wild. So yeah, thank you all for coming to my corner. I've been the DM. If you liked the video, hit like, hit subscribe. If you didn't like the video, hit dislike. Leave a comment letting me know why. And I'll see y'all tomorrow or whenever. Bye.